Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Final Two podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Bruce Hamburger. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Happy to have you, Coach. Happy to have you here, Coach.
No, thank you.
How you been, Coach?
All good. All good. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Positive always.
Yep.
Good to hear.
You know what? I got to take something off my chest, Coach. I've known you now almost 2 years. Yeah. So I first met you tryouts 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember I tried out for the team?
Yes.
Oh, you do remember? Okay.
I remember. Go back. I remember seeing you play in high school.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Really? Where? What games?
Mark Datica's senior
Yes,
year,
senior night.
Game, senior night.
Yeah, almost a mouse in the palace. It was a big fight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. I was
almost a little altercation, and
it almost got into a big fight.
Yeah.
Sal, you were about to scrap, Sal?
I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot of tension between both teams. Not with Mark. I had no problems with Mark. It was the funniest thing. Obviously, he embarrassed me, blocking every freaking shot of mine, being that he's like almost 7 feet. No, I'm kidding. But it was just so hard to play against him. He just, he was a tower over me. But I was just going to talk about the fact that you cut me from the team.
Well, I'll start with, my job title. I'm not the head coach. I just make suggestions, and not that I was not involved in the walk-on process. I observed and gave my opinion.
Yeah. I'm not gonna blame you.
I did not have decisions. that was the younger guys.
I'm busting you. But honestly, I have to say I did play like ass. I'm not gonna lie. I was in front of Pete, and I was just hurling up shots, trying to be like Kobe. Stand out was not working. So I can't blame you. But it broke my heart. I had to tell my mom next day. I got a text, and it was just like, you didn't make the team. And I was like, shit, man, I'm done. I got to put up the jerseys, the shoes, and I had to get that out, But look at us now. It's crazy how far, 2 years has been.
Yeah. And things have a way of working out. So
Exactly. So what's the process like, though, when you're scouting? Either in walk-ons, my situation, judging the players walking on with tryouts, and then, also scouting kids from high school. What's the process like with that?
Yeah, you know what? Two probably different scenarios. I mean, obviously you're looking to see how good a kid is and talent, and can it help you win? Can it help your program be better? But, a lot of times with walk-ons, and I say this to guys all the time that want to try out, it's about fit. It's about what position you play. It's about, your current roster of your team. Obviously if you have 4 point guards and the kid wants to walk on who's a point guard, he's probably not going to make the team, even if he's pretty good, because he's never going to get on the court. So, especially at our level too, I think we look for versatility. Can a kid play 3 or 4 positions? So when he's in practice, can he guard multiple guys? Can he play a couple different positions from an offensive standpoint? I think part of it too is how not intelligent isn't the word I want to use, but just like his basketball IQ. Can you pick things up quickly? Because most of, and you're at practice every day. Most of the guys who are walk-ons, their role is in game preparation. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're preparing for Wagner College, and Friday they're preparing for LIU, and then next week it's 2 new teams. So it's more about, can you pick up concepts quickly? Are you versatile? Are you tough enough, athletic enough that you can go from playing a point guard to playing a power forward and not see a dramatic difference? So it's a fit from a walk-on standpoint. From a regular recruiting standpoint, it's obviously it's talent. Is the kid good enough? I think as a coach, you look at, how does your team play style-wise? I mean, obviously, if you're a big 3-point shooting team and a kid can't shoot the ball, it's probably not going to be a good fit. So I think fit is the key word. You as a coach have your things that are kind of non-negotiable. If a kid doesn't play hard, if a kid's not tough, most coaches are going to kind of pass on that kid. But then it comes down to, again, fit and style and just how you want to play as a program. And you watch a guy, does he fit? But the other thing too, I think, is upside potential. You're looking at a kid who's 16 or 17 years old, but you have to kind of project to when that kid is 18, 19, and 20, if he does the right things, if he's a gym rat, if he likes to work, if he, wants to get in the weight room, are they going to improve and get better? So you're kind of looking down the road and forecasting the future a little bit as well.
Exactly, because you look at how they stand out. Well, how do you assess a player when certain high schools, like players, like we heard it from prior athletes, they talk about how high school, it's obviously not the competition level, is not the same as D1, of course. So how do you assess them, because they all make the mixtapes, they're all going to look good, but what are some like key things that you look at as a coach that you would see the potential for a player as well?
Yeah, I think the first thing you kind of look at is body types. It's almost like the NFL with the scouting combines. I mean, you're looking at a kid and, okay, is he a finished product today? Probably not. But then you look and see, does he have long arms? Does he have wide shoulders? Or his legs strong? And then again, projecting ahead, okay, well, we have a good strength and conditioning program. If this kid works hard, is he going to get better? Is he going to progress? Is his body going to change in 2 years? And then obviously, again, you're looking at skill and talent and, what is the strength that guy has? I mean, everyone has a strength. So what is it? Does it fit to your needs? Are his weaknesses that, you can coach and improve through player development? So it's a very inexact science, recruiting, as much as we all, you study it, you watch the kids play video. Like you said, a kid sends you a highlight tape. Of course it's going to be good, but you got to go, you got to go much deeper than that. You got to see kids in different environments. I mean, I love when I'm recruiting to see a kid that you already like. You're not as much evaluating, but I like to see a kid when he plays poorly and how's he going to respond? When a kid gets 2 bad foul calls in the first half, how's he respond to the refs? His coach gets on his ass during a timeout. How's he respond to that? Because at the end of the day, all the things we see in high school are going to happen in college, probably magnified, at a higher level. The coaching is going to be more demanding. The players are going to be bigger, quicker, stronger. So, you're going to be in similar situations down the road. It's always good to see how they respond, when they're in their high school setting.
Coach, do you feel the same way as that for women as well? Because women's sports, the basketball, I know you're WNBA, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Correct.
So,
correct.
New York Liberty.
That's right.
Liberty right there. We're going to get into that. But, how is it for women? Is it the same process?
I think it's the same. Yeah. I think obviously, the women's – again, I'm a huge proponent of women's basketball. I don't get coaches who say they don't like watching the women's game. I think women's basketball is at such a high level now, and coaching is so good. But, within the women's game, I think the skill set's even more important because they're obviously not as athletic as the guys. And so I think in some level it's probably easier evaluating women because you see what they are. You see the skill set where a lot of times guys will try to do things athletically where there's not as much skill involved. It's just an athleticism component of it. And they've been athletic their whole life and they haven't had to work on the skill set as much as the women do. So I think women's basketball is terrific. Like I said, I'm a huge proponent of it. I worked in the WNBA for 2 years and saw obviously the highest level of women's basketball.
How was that? How was that working there?
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. Different. It's professional. It's a business. There are decisions made that aren't always basketball decisions. Where I think in college, every decision is a basketball decision, but in the pros, there are decisions made based on contracts, based on potential trades. There's a lot of just again business. But it was great. I really enjoyed it.
I feel like that with college. I feel like when you come into college, you realize a little bit that it's a business. because with, recruits coming in every year and stuff like that, you're like, hold up, like I ain't getting replaced like that. But then once you go pro, I feel like it gets even bigger because it's like, yeah, there's a contract. If you mess up, you're out of here. That's just how simple it is.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, the things in college that, we have to deal with at times, and I'm not saying we at Fairleigh Dickinson, but just we as college coaches, kids being late, kids missing class, kids screwing something up. In the pro game, if you screw up, hit the road, we'll sign someone else. So that being said, and that was one of the biggest things I took with the women's side of the pro level. They're so appreciative that they have jobs and that there's a women's league, that they don't do anything that puts you as a coach or a team executive into a position to say, we can't have her because she's just troublemaker, she's a problem, we got to get rid of her. That doesn't happen. I mean, the changes are made because someone's better than you, or we need to make a trade to help our roster. Where at college, again, every coach, you deal with off the court issues at times that, for the most part, are not major issues, obviously, but you deal with them. Where in the pros, it's all business. This is their job. They understand that there's a window of their career. They understand they're fortunate to have that career, so they do everything the right way.
So you feel like that's the biggest difference from college and pro, without a doubt, is the business side of it?
Yep, definitely. And, there's good and bad of that. The good is that, again, it's all business. So there's a level of focus, it's their job. I mean, when people get jobs, they don't want to screw their jobs up. So they do things the right way. College, you're dealing with, again, the transition of high school to college. You're dealing with the social aspect. You're dealing with the academic, time management, all the things, just the things that you guys as students go through, and now compound that being an athlete, where it's almost a job that these guys have at the college level. So it's a different.
You have to grow up.
Yeah, you got to improve, you got to grow, you got to mature quickly, and some guys do it at different paces. So every team is different.
The learning curve, we call it, the learning curve.
100%.
So where did you find your love for coaching? Where did that start for you? When it was like, hey, I want to be a coach. Where did that love come from?
Yeah, when I played all the time as a kid. I wasn't a great player by any stretch, but I love basketball.
I can relate.
Yeah, I just love to play, and I played all the time. The park in my backyard. Again, you guys are obviously a lot younger than me. Back in the day, it used to be like you'd play outside, which you don't see that much anymore. You drive through towns and you see playgrounds and basketball courts empty with no one there. When I was growing up, you'd go to the park on a day, like a beautiful day like today, the sun's out, you'd go play and there'd be 50 guys there. And if you lost, you got to sit for 4 or 5 or 6 games to get back onto the court. So, that's where I think as a young kid, you got competitive really quickly, because if you lost, you got to go sit. And I just love to play. I realized, excuse me, at some point, I didn't have a career in basketball as a player, obviously, but I knew I loved the game, and I had really good young coaches and mentors growing up that I looked at and said, I want to be like those people. I want to be. So I bet you 15, 16 years old, I kind of realized this is what I wanted to do. My mindset was I'd be a high school coach and a high school teacher. And as I started coaching at the high school level when I was in college, we had a really good team with a top 50 player in the country who college coaches would come in all the time recruiting him. So I kind of got exposed at a young age to college coaches, and so like, wow, that's a pretty cool job. You get to go to games and fly around the country and talk to coaches and watch kids and recruit them. And so my mindset kind of changed. I want to be a college coach, and I was fortunate right out of college to get a graduate assistant position, at Trenton State College, which is now the college in New Jersey. And, my career just kind of progressed from there. But yeah, I've been doing this from as soon as I graduated college. Graduated whatever, the spring, and that September I had a assistant coaching job, and I've been doing it ever since.
being a coach, how is that? I mean, after playing basketball to going and becoming a coach, what transition was that like? Like, was it an easy transition, or was it like, man, there's a lot different because I'm running the show now?
Yeah, it was, because again, I wasn't a good player, so it wasn't like I had any career. I mean, I tried out in high school and literally got cut 4 years in a row. I mean, and again, I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't a good player. I was small in high school. I kind of grew in college. So I grew late. I was small, but no, it wasn't. I think what it's allowed me to do is as I've gotten older and coaching through the years, I think it's given me a feel for like every level of player. Like I can relate to the guy sitting at the end of the bench who doesn't play. I can relate to the walk-on. I can relate
That's
to the
huge.
guy who's killing himself every day in practice and not getting an opportunity to play. And I've been around enough really good players, and I've coached guys who have played in the NBA, so I can relate to the high level guy as well. So
I feel like great leaders know how to talk to certain players a certain way, and I feel like you hit it right there on the nod. Is just talking to these players differently, not all the same. You gotta. When do you realize, like, hey, like I gotta talk to this person a certain way, and or when did you mature enough for you, like, hey, I gotta coach everyone kind of a little bit differently?
Yeah, it's just been a process. And again, even when I started coaching in college, I've worked for and I've been around really good coaches. So I just, to me, I don't know. I just think the game, obviously the game's about X and O's and how you play and style and all that. But, and I guess I was fortunate. I figured out at a young age in the coaching profession that, if the kid's not believing in you as the coach and they're not buying into you, it doesn't matter what you're telling them. Like they really need to know and better know that you care for them before you try to coach them. Because if there's not a connection and a relationship, it's just noise that coming out of a coach's mouth. And I mean, you guys, I'm sure you've played on teams with guys like that. You've played with guys like that. You probably played for coaches who were probably really good coaches, but just didn't connect with the player. And I think today's world in the coaching profession, if you're not connecting with your guys and having a relationship, you're not going to do well at all. It's going to be
the chemistry.
I feel like our generation, especially, our generation is so different because it's like you have to talk to us a certain way because we feel bad a certain way and stuff. When back then it was like you curse them out and they'll do better.
Yep.
Like now that doesn't work anymore, and I feel like a coach that realizes that will be successful long term. So
yeah, 100%. Back in the day, it was you could yell and scream at a guy and rant and rave, and it was wow, that's the coach. So it's acceptable, and not that it was right, but that just how things were. I think today, as a coach, you have to explain to kids. Like I think your generation kids are like, you're always asking why, which is a good thing. Why are we doing this? Why? And not in a disrespectful way, but you guys seek out information. So I think as a coach, if you're not explaining the why to your players, or if the players don't know why you're doing it, why do we have to have our shirts tucked in at practice? Well, it's more than about the look. It's about the discipline of it. It's so at the end of the game, we're all on the same page, even though it has no relation to your shirt, but it does.
It's all connected. It's all connected.
It all comes together. So if you're not explaining the why to your guys and they don't buy into it, you're just talking into the wind, and it's not going to work.
How important is team unity? Isn't that the biggest part when you're looking for a guy, especially recruiting? Is how could this guy fit into this group of a family? Because a team is a family.
Especially being coachable.
Yeah. No, it's a huge thing. I think at times it's almost you want to make sure the guy doesn't come in and screw it up. He might not fit perfectly, but as long as he doesn't screw it up, you can work on him fitting in at a later point. But now, I mean, it's being coachable, accepting criticism, working with other guys towards a common goal. I mean, it's all cliche phrases that we use as coaches. I mean, it's coach talk, but there's a lot of truth to it. So that's why, again, I think in the recruiting process, the more environments you see a kid play in, and the more scenarios you see them in, you just see how they react to different situations. Because again, I'm a big believer. Every situation that occurs in high school is going to occur to them at the college level, and it's going to be magnified even greater. So again, if they're not responding well, when they're generally most kids that that we're recruiting, most of the kids are the best player on their team. They're probably not getting coached the hardest because they're the best player. They're getting the most shots. So if that guy's not happy then and is a problem, why is it going to not be a problem for us? So, you really got to do your homework in the recruiting process.
I feel like sports is like life, like exactly what you just said here. It's like you got to fail to learn. You got to really go through these obstacles to really find not just a team, not where you're going to come, but yourself. Who are you as a person? What can you deal with? What can't you? So that's a huge part right there. Would you want to become an NBA coach anytime, or is that the goal, or is that
the Knicks have an open? So if you know anyone there, yeah. I mean, I'm realistic that that's not happening. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big NBA fan. I love watching the NBA. I know a lot of college coaches don't like the NBA. I'm a huge NBA.
Why is that? Why don't they like?
There's a common stigma with that.
I don't know. It's weird. I think a lot of it is because they probably haven't studied the NBA. I think that the image of the NBA people have is, we'll turn on the last 4 minutes, the game will be tied, we'll see who wins. But the NBA, I mean, if you really study it and watch it, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to go see some teams practice over the years, the NBA game is so intricate. It's such a higher level. Everyone's bigger, stronger, quicker, faster. The shot clock is lower, so the decision-making has to be quicker. I mean, the NBA game is incredible how good and how well coached and how many different scenarios occur in an NBA game. I mean, an NBA coach is making more decisions probably in the last 4 minutes of the game than a college coach realistically does in a whole game. Because it's just, again, more possessions, timeouts. Do we advance the ball? Do we it's the same game, but it's a totally different game. It's kind of like to some degree, it's apples and oranges. They're both fruit, obviously, but they're a lot different. That's kind of how I think the college and the NBA game, and that's part of why you see when a lot of the college coaches who get NBA jobs, a lot of them, it's such a learning curve.
Yeah.
And guys struggle, and most guys are getting bad jobs. It's not a good team. It's a rebuild situation, and then it takes a year or two for most guys to adjust to the college game. So it's a tough jump for college coaches.
And I agree with you on that part too. Like a lot of people, like coaches, college coaches, they kind of overlook it. They don't really want to watch the sport. Kind of to play devil's advocate here, though. I mean, the play style is, of course, a lot different than college. It's a lot slower. It's a lot of ISO ball. So, I mean, what comparison, like if you were to, kind of agree with why coaches maybe not agree with, watching the NBA, would you say that's probably the reason, like the whole style of play?
I don't know. And I don't get that argument from college coaches, because the other thing too, that, and it's been going on for 15 years, the NBA game is 3 or 4 years ahead of the college game in terms of trends and style of play. So the college game now, where everything's pick and roll and multiple pick and rolls, that was the NBA, 7-8 years ago. Now it's at an even higher level. So I think the smart college coaches and the really good ones study the heck out of the NBA, because they know that this is the next level and this is where it's going. And, the NBA game is influenced by the European style of play, FIBA basketball. And college is influenced by the NBA. We're just a couple years behind. So I don't really get why you wouldn't want to study the highest level of the sport, whatever the sport is. College football coaches are doing things that the NFL guys are doing. So I don't really get the college basketball coaches who don't study. Where the college football guys, that's all you hear them is they do study the NFL so much. And conversely, the NFL guys will study college football for defensive things. And, like run and shoot offense and run pass option, the RPO stuff that the college guys do that the NFL guys have stolen. So, it's interesting. That's part of what's good about coach. You can there's so much to study, and nowadays, but obviously, everything's on YouTube, and you can find games everywhere. And Synergy, an editing system that we use for games. So I mean, if you're a college coach not really studying the game now, you're going to get left in the dust because it's constantly evolving and changing, and trends are changing. So, as a college coach, you need to stay up on it, in my opinion.
No, those are good points, what you were saying as well, like taking aspects from, certain leagues too. Before, like, coming up and coming, in your head coaching career, who in that case, who were some people that you kind of like were inspired by in the coaching position, whether it be NBA or whatever? I mean, for me, like when I was going back to the Jordan documentary, Phil Jackson's like my mentality, like the Zen, he would call it, right? That was something that stuck out to me. Like, even though I'm not, a player, a head coach, but even in a situation as a leader, that was something that really like stood out to me. So like, who was someone that you kind of admired in the coaching position?
Yeah, and again, as I said before, I've been fortunate where I've worked for and with really good coaches. So I've been able to study, kind of greatness when I've been working in those situations. I was an assistant back at Seton Hall back in the day, and I mean, we were top 10, top 15 in the country. I mean, we were an elite program that played.
Okay, coach.
Flex on him, coach.
that played, they played in the national championship. So it's like, they're not getting any better than that. So to just be in good programs, to see different coaches. But I mean, to answer your question directly, yeah, I've always been like a huge Larry Brown guy. The Sixers with Allen Iverson, the Pistons. A highly successful college coach, Kansas and UCLA. I mean, he's bounced around a million places. He's one of the best ever. I've really, as I was growing up, he was a guy that I looked up to. But now, I have guys, like I'm a huge Brad Stevens guy with the Celtics. So
great coach.
Yeah, and just, like if I could go back and be a head coach again, that's how I would want to act. I'd want to I just love like the calmness, and he's thoughtful, and he understands his place in the NBA. It's not about the coach, it's about the players. He gets that. He's all about his guys. There's a lot of guys. Mark Few at Gonzaga, another guy. Just the consistency. The team changes every year. The one constant of Gonzaga is the coach for the last 20 years that they've been, talk about a dynasty there. So there's a million guys that I like to really look at and study closely. And, there's a lot of good college coaches, and I enjoy looking at other sports too. I think there's so much you can learn. Like I really like to follow and read about and study football coaches. I just think how they manage such an enormous roster, an enormous coaching staff, how they organize practice, the situational aspect of football. So I really like to study football coaches and read about football coaches to try to steal some ideas from them as well.
Coach, would you ever go international? Because I'm seeing all these big time players now going international, like
college players too. Or high school.
Yeah.
High school. I'm talking about high school players going.
Yeah, no, that's becoming a trend for kids to go overseas for a year or two and kind of bypass the college situation, get paid and.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't know. College isn't for everyone. I get that. So I you know what? If a guy doesn't want to go to college and if he feels that he can play at a high level and wants to get paid or needs to get paid to support the family, I don't have a problem with that. I just think, again, college isn't for everyone. Not everyone is ready mentally, or not everyone wants to go to college. So it's tough to say, some of these guys that are going to be high level guys that why shouldn't they be able to go to Europe, or why shouldn't they be able to go to the NBA? You know what? If you don't want to do the one and done or two-year thing, then if you're good enough, play. I think there need to be guidelines in place, and there need to be.
What type of problems do you think they could face going international though? Because I really don't know basketball, so I just have like this.
Again, it's even more of a business overseas. If you're an American and you go overseas and you don't play well, they're going to send you home really quickly. So you better have a good agent, get a guaranteed contract, and make sure you're getting your money. But overseas is tough because again, it's a social adjustment. It's a cultural adjustment. Many times it's a language adjustment. You could go to a city, or a country in a small city where they don't speak English. So it's not as, the basketball is basketball. Once you go play, you could be a player and go play on a team with four guys that don't speak English. And basketball, I think like any sport, it just kind of transcends things, and you just know how to play. But all the off the court stuff makes it a very difficult adjustment for guys. So I think that's the you see the guys who have been going overseas have gone to Australia, New Zealand, which are very Americanized. They speak the language. There's not a language adjustment. There's not a huge, it's the other side of the world, but it's not a huge cultural adjustment. But I mean, imagine again, if you're 18, 19 years old and all right, you're going to go play in, Poland or Russia or wherever, and it's just such a huge difference. That's challenging.
I like what you mentioned before, talking about your admirations, in certain coaches like Larry Brown, Brad Stevens. Larry Brown really stuck out with me too, because I watched Allen Iverson's documentary. How he was kind of growing up into the league, and he went through some hardships. He had some dilemmas and certain drama, and for a coach like Larry Brown to be able to handle all that and still flip the team around and bring them to the championship, coaching them, I wanted to relate it to kind of last season. I mean, we were having some hard times with chemistry. I remember we weren't doing good when I first came in as that manager. From the coaching side, how were you guys able to really flip that switch and have the team locked and loaded into actually go even? I think we went 8-8, right?
Yeah.
So how were you able to do that?
Yeah, that's I think every year the biggest challenge you face as a coach is just every team is different. Like next year's team will be different than this year, even though we only lost 2 players. But it'll be a different team. Guys grow up, guys mature, guys are in a different place in their life. You bring in new players, how do they affect your team? So I think as a coach, you hope, and again, I think it's an overused word in the coaching sports world now of culture. Everyone talks about their culture. I myself, I like the word environment more than culture, because I think it kind of more broad based of just what's the environment of your program. But yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, it's an everyday. I don't want to use the word battle because that's not the right word, but it's an everyday task. It's an everyday piece of your day of just making sure that guys are on the same page. And again, going back to what I said earlier, communicating with guys and just, because again, the day after a game, on a basketball roster of 13 guys, 6 guys are pissed that they didn't play enough, or they didn't get enough shots, or they didn't get any minutes. So how are you getting them ready to practice? How are you motivating them? How are they dealing with not playing or playing?
How would you do that?
Yeah, I just think it's, again, you hope you have a good structure in place. You hope you have good upperclassmen that are pretty good role models that the younger guys can look up to. You hope you have good guys that in the locker room are saying the right things to the players. When a kid, before practice, after practice, someone's unhappy and complaining, you hope you have a senior or a junior that said, no, hey, I've been in your shoes. Just keep doing what he's saying. It's going to work out. But again, as a coach, it's just constantly talking and kind of reaffirming your message of, especially to your point, Sal, when things aren't going well, hey, like we've been here. We're going to be all right. Here's what we got to do to keep getting over the hump. So hopefully if next year we get into that situation, we can refer back to this year. You know what? We did the right things. We kept working. We stayed the course. We just, we knew early this year we were better than we were playing, and it wasn't working. It wasn't clicking. We weren't guarding well. Guys were hurt. Guys weren't playing up to their capabilities. And then you just, again, overused word, you just kind of grind through it. Just plug away, have good practices. Let's have this segment of practice be good, and 2 segments, 3 segments. So let's have, tomorrow's walkthrough be good and sharp and focused, and let's play well. And as you guys know, you play sport.
Of course.
You just got to get momentum, and you got to get, all of a sudden kind of it clicks, it works, and like, all right, here's what it's supposed to be. And then you get on a roll, and you get it going, hopefully.
So you have the structure in place, right? Everything's good, everything's well. But then this quarantine, this coronavirus hits. Who would even imagine that this would even happen? How did that even, how was that moment? How is the team doing? How are you guys staying on top of everything and making sure guys are, happy and motivated still?
Yeah. It's I wouldn't say it's been a challenge, but it's been, it's been a lot of just communication. It goes back to that. I think coaching today is about communication. I really do. I think it's just making sure your players are on the same page with you and that you're communicating your message to them really clear. There's no gray area. There's no indecision. They're not always going to like what you have to say, but at least they know where you stand on things. So that to me, every day is kind of my goal as a coach. Just make sure our guys know where we're at. It's been a challenging, 3 months now. Obviously, everyone had to adjust to doing classes online, and most of them have done some, but you're missing that component of the interaction with your friends in class, walking to class, hanging in the cafeteria. Obviously the interaction with the teacher. For our guys, they missed the one-on-one meetings and communication with our academic staff, Madison and Jocelyn and her staff, where the academic support component. But again, to our guys' credit, they had a great semester. We had over 3.0 GPA this semester. So, guys did really well academically. So our guys are mentally pretty strong kids, and, they have their moments where they kind of, it hits them, but I think they've been good. We've been doing, mostly once a week Zoom calls as a team of just discussing things or making sure, we're on the same page about things, but just a ton of, texting and communicating. I know I try 2 or 3 times a day to find something good on Twitter, a message, a saying, a slogan, a thought.
That's huge.
Every day. I'm in that.
Just send it to guys so that, 1, they know we're thinking about them, and 2, maybe something they read just kind of, to your point, just motivates them to just kind of stay hanging
positive.
There. Yeah, and the only advantage we have, and it's not an advantage, but it's the word I'll use, is I think our guys know everyone's going through this. It's not like we're the only team in the NEC or we're the only team in New Jersey. Like our guys are dealing with the same stuff that the Duke and Kentucky guys are dealing with. And it's just the inability to be with your friends, your teammates on campus, the inability to get in the gym with the coaches, inability to get into the weight room with the strength and conditioning staff. So, no one signed up for this, obviously, but again, it's like we just got to fight through it and deal with it the best we can. Fortunately, everyone's healthy. We had 1 or 2 little scares, but nothing came of it. No one's gotten the coronavirus. Families haven't really been affected. So, at the end of the day, this whole thing puts missing a layup or turning the ball over into some perspective. So I think, next year, once we can get back on the court, I think guys will appreciate the opportunity. Mm-hmm. I think they'll realize, don't take things, we always said, don't take things for granted, but, this kind of gives you.
You don't realize it till it's gone.
Yeah, this gives you a different perspective on it.
Yeah, the guys are really motivated. And to go back what you were talking about, like the mental toughness, like that's the one thing I really like about these group of guys, man. you know, like there were certain games this prior season that like we just looked depleted. We were out of it in the minds, but never like when it came down to the second half, probably even the last quarter, the Bryant game, for instance, you know, they immediately would come together, and it was that unity that really stuck out. And that's the real great thing about Fairleigh Dickinson basketball. I think it happened even seasons before that, you know, under Greg, that, you know, the team would just come together. I mean, what was like some things like in the huddles that like really showed that like these kids were mature and were able to lead each other?
Yeah, you know, I think they do a really good job individually and collectively as a team. Is they get over things pretty quickly. You know, they get over bad plays, they get over bad games, they move on to the next play, to the next opponent, to the next practice pretty well. And again, it's collective. Not that everyone's doing it 100% every day, but at the end of the day, I think, and again, it goes back to recruiting. Like, we got good guys. I mean, you guys know they're good kids. They're coming from good families. They're coming from good high school programs. They were well coached. So I mean, it starts with that. If you have a team full of guys that are knuckleheads and just not good people, you get into these bad situations. You know, bad moment in a game, coronavirus, whatever the case may be. You get into a bad situation with bad people, it's not going to work well. So we're fortunate. We got good guys. They've been raised well. They're coming from good families. They got good support at home. So we're just kind of doing our part to, you know, kind of make sure, again, from the academic and the basketball standpoint, that they're focused and doing the right thing.
I think sports, like what you were saying just now, sports is huge because it teaches you life. A lot of things you go through in sports, it's like things you'll go to in life. But at the end of the day, it's just a sport. There's more to life and there's more going on. For example, like these Black Lives Matter thing going on and all that happening on top of this coronavirus for this year. How do you tell these guys like, hey, I love you no matter what? Because I know it's a very, very big African-American group. And it's like, I know like this is a huge topic right now, but it's like, hey guys, like no matter what, I love you. And that's just, how do you
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You know what? At the end of the day, if as a coach, you have to start telling them that now because of this situation, you're losing the battle. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
preach, coach.
You hope that, again, obviously a terrible situation in the world and in the United States, in the world medically and in the United States and worldwide, socially and racially. I mean, it's just terrible events that have occurred, but obviously very eye-opening for people. But again, you hope as a coach, you know, it's almost like as a parent, you know, your kid gets in trouble and he screws up. If you got to then tell him, hey, I got your back, I'm there for you, I love you, I support you, and you haven't done that prior to that moment, they're probably not. They're looking at you like, come on, man. Like, I know you're not being sincere. So I think that's one of the things in this business. You just have to be consistent and sincere. And, you know, our guys knew, again, they knew before this situation occurred, if there wasn't all of the racial issues that came to a head 2 weeks ago, they would still know. I like to think they would know, you know what, we're there for you. We support you. Whatever happens, we're going to have your back and help you through this. So it's just another, I mean, it's a great teaching situation. It's a great opportunity for everyone, I think, to communicate at a higher level. You know, I think it's great when you see young guys and women just taking a cause and taking a stand and believing in something that's bigger than them.
I love it.
You know, it's going to be a really interesting year for college athletics coming up whenever it gets started. Hopefully it'll start with football and soccer in the fall and we can transition into basketball, but it's going to be a really interesting year with all this, the health issues, the you know, are we going to play with crowds, no crowds, you know, the college is going to change. I mean, your college experience is going to be different. You know, on the court, off the court, the social issues involved, the racial issues involved. So, you know, I keep referring to it. It goes back to, you know, who you bring into your program, what do they believe in? Are they good people? And I think if you surround yourself with enough good ones and all these terrible scenarios occur, you can kind of get through them, collectively as a group. And our job as coaches is to kind of steer them in the right direction and help them get through this and support them and be there for them and talk to them and answer their questions. And, if needed, get them help and guidance and support. But it's an everyday process.
It is. I mean, I think you hit it on. That's a strong right there message. Is I don't need to send you a message now, and I've been sending to you before, which is huge because I feel like a lot of people may be doing that right now. It's, hey, I want to let you know I love you, but you weren't like that with me before.
Right.
And I think that's huge.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I think your generation, like kids today, you can't fool kids today. I mean, they see through the BS in 2 seconds. And again, if you're and you're seeing it at a lot of some of the the high level football programs that are having some issues right now, and players are speaking up and players are being proactive and players are complaining about treatment. And you see programs and schools and administrations and coaching staff trying to kind of play catch up because they've made some mistakes in the past and they're getting called out for it now. And again, I'm not involved in any of those programs, and I'm hearing what's being said, and I'm kind of like, really? Like you're just trying to play catch up now because you haven't done it on a daily basis at a good enough level. So, that's always your hope as a coach, that you're doing things every day the right way, and that you're getting players that buy into that and believe in you, and you're kind of all together collectively on the same page and doing the same thing.
Coach,
it's very true. It's very true what you're talking about. Like, big name organizations now speaking out about, the current events that are taking place rather than, it's been happening for years. And, with the NFL, I can understand like certain players not wanting to play because, systemic racism still taking place, and, the league's just going to try to take out, those narratives by just having football, get in the way. What's going on right now is that the NBA is, of course, coming back. And the NBA, I have to say, they've been doing a phenomenal job with, addressing the issues. They were the first ones, to stop the league.
That commissioner is amazing.
Adam Silver is phenomenal. He's
the
first one
God, he's amazing.
Stop the league when the pandemic was just, beginning, before it started to explode. But there's players speaking out. Kyrie Irving was in the headlines recently. And I just want to hear your thought about this. He wants the players really not to continue the season because they think that it will, change the subject. It's almost like that issue with, people posting the black picture on their social medias because it's kind of canceling out, what Black Lives Matter is being posted about online. Do you agree with his stance that, they shouldn't continue the league because of that? Because personally, I just feel like you kind of still need some, like a soft, like, something to take your mind off, current situations. And I think the NBA shouldn't be liable with that.
Yeah, my feeling, and again, without knowing obviously all the particulars of what's being said, and I think there is a lot of kind of misinformation. It's a private phone call, but there's a million people being quoted. Yeah. So I kind of never get that. Yeah. But no, I mean, I think, again, at the end of the day, and I agree with you guys, like the NBA has been so proactive in social issues and race issues, and they've been ahead of every sport. To me, the world's dying to see basketball come back. I mean, it's I guess behind soccer, it's the most popular sport in the world. I think they have such a platform that if they don't play, they go silent. Right now, I think like there will be such focus on the NBA when they come back and play. And there's so many good young players in the NBA who have such a voice and influence so many people with their voice that their voice will be heard. I mean, like LeBron's going to speak out. LeBron's going to speak out on social issues, racial issues. He puts his money where his mouth is. He gets involved. So, like, obviously, I want to see LeBron play to see LeBron play, but I want to hear what LeBron has to say when he's interviewed. And I want to, to me, there's such a platform throughout the world that the NBA has. I mean, those finals games are broadcast in literally every country in the world. So to me, it's not a great scenario. You're in a bubble for 3 months and all that stuff. I get that, but I don't know. I just think like, boy, you guys have such a voice in the sports world and just the world in general. And again, obviously the league is predominantly African American. So you know, you're who everyone is in favor of. Black Lives Matter. Most of the league is made up of black players. So you have such a platform, like use it. So I hope they play. I mean, I want to see them play as a fan and just someone who likes enjoying the highest level of basketball. But I think they can do so much more to draw attention to things. And to your point, the Adam Silver is such a good commissioner that they're going to come up with so many different initiatives and platforms, and you know, guys wearing shooting shirts that have a message, or they designed a court with something about Black Lives Matter. Somehow, some way, they're going to get their message out there at a higher level than not playing. I think that's my take. There's obviously a lot more that goes into that, and you know, there's a lot of you know, again, it's a business. Like I said, I mean, pro sports, don't ever think it's not a business before the game starts. It's a business, and these guys, the high level players are like corporations. I mean, they have they themselves are a corporation, so they're making decisions based on what is best for them. But I think what's best for people is for them to play and have a voice and to get a message out there.
Agreeable. I agree. I mean, LeBron is one thing that you go to see greatness. You know, again, it's not just on the court. It's just outside the court. All he's done, build a school, a community, like bring this positivity out there that's just more than just basketball. You know what I mean? Like, I always say this in all my podcasts, like we're all retired someday. We're all going to retire from the sport someday. And it's like, what are you now? Like, and it's just huge to see someone that great in everything he does, not just on the court, but outside the court too, with his family. That's something you actually look up to. So I think that's just a huge point right there.
Yeah, now 100%. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's obviously a phenomenal player. I don't know the guy, obviously, but he seems like a phenomenal person. He's a businessman. He has a voice. He knows he has a voice, and he believes in things. And I mean, what he's done, to your point, with the school in Akron, that's amazing what he's done. I mean, just talk about changing lives of young kids and changing the next generation, the lives of people, and to be able to, you know, obviously use basketball as his platform, but you know what he's done, and so many guys do at different levels. He's obviously a higher level than everyone. So yeah, I'm really hopeful that they come back and play and are able to, you know, to kind of influence change, because I think they will.
Huge, coach.
Dude. You know, the other thing is, like, people have to realize that LeBron is speaking. He's actually using his platform. You know, a lot of athletes, you know, back in the day, even Michael Jordan, he really wasn't speaking out. And LeBron has switched that narrative and, you know, is becoming that voice. You know, he's going to have a lot of haters, of course, but, you know, he's trying to make this movement because, you know, the country has not changed. And that's the whole reason why. And again, like, we all praise him for it.
I mean, you know, again, the school, he's got his TV show where he's got a platform. He just, you know, and again, I think he believes in the right things and in good things and understands how to influence change. And he's obviously very connected with people. And, you know, he's got a great story of his upbringing and where he's come from, you know, when he was a teen, you know, not living in the same house for, you know, months at a time, shifting all over different apartments with his mom, and what he's become. So it's a terrific story. And you know, again, I'm a huge fan as a basketball player. I'm probably a bigger fan of his just as a person for what he does, because you're right, a lot of athletes, you know, and I think that's really changing now, but you know, a lot of athletes over time have been very quiet. You know, they don't want to lose endorsements. They don't want to offend people. They don't want to be outspoken. And they do. They have athletes have such a platform, and so many young kids look up to them, and they can literally change the world in some aspects.
Social media.
Yeah.
Social media
Exactly.
changed everything.
Exactly.
It just changed so much. I mean, that's why we also created this podcast, Coach, because it's just, you know how many people look up to us, maybe from our towns, maybe 30 people, maybe not 100 million like they have there, but it's like, if we could share positivity during this time, especially, like, that's open. That's something that could just, you know, I don't know, you could just get all these stories, like a Division I coach, another person, their stories are what they believe in and what they do, and you know, it's just a big thing. So, Coach, I
100%.
appreciate you being on here, Coach.
I've enjoyed it, but no, it's true. Like during this time, you need to see and hear positive stories. There's definitely enough negativity in the world. So I think that's the great. And I said this to someone last week. I wish the world everyone in the world could have played sports, because you guys know, you go into a locker room, you're with a team, you don't care if they're black, they're white, they're this, they're that. You just want to know, you know what, is the guy a good teammate? Does the guy have my back? And all the things we talked about that you kind of learn through sports, the ability to communicate and be honest with each other and work hard and deal with adversity and bad situations and losing and getting cut. And now you host your own podcast. You just deal with life. And I think I really believe that if more people had played sports and were on teams, I wish the country was like a team, and it wouldn't be Democrat, Republican. I believe in that. It would be like we're all on the same team. Like the front of the jersey says America. We're all, Sal, you're wearing your USA sweatshirt. We're all on the same team. Now, again, within a team, within a locker room, you have differences of opinions, and you don't all actually believe in the same thing, but collectively, you know what, you come together and you make it work because you're all trying to do the same thing. So I do wish the world and the country was more like a locker room, because I think we'd be in a better place.
100%.
I just think sports educates you differently than just books. It's like education like that. I feel like that's what we're missing, is a lot like, hey, you have this opinion, let me hear you out and educate me on why you believe that. Mm-hmm. And that's what we work towards. And I feel like that's what we're missing a little bit. It's just, let me hear what you have. Okay, you're this. Okay, this is what I believe. I'm not right, you're not right, but now let's work together and make it better like we do in a team. You know what I'm saying? It's just,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the problem now is like people on one side don't even want to hear what the other person has to say. Exactly. And they have a predetermined mindset of what that person's going to say. So there's no level of communication. It's just anger and adversity, and one side against the other, and no one wins, and no one. And to your point before, we've been having these race problems for years and years, and it's just butting heads, and no one has improved the situation. I think, that's the great thing about sports. You can take so many things from a team, from a coach, from a locker room situation that when you're done playing, you said before, like, we're all going to be retired one day, but all the things that you can take from sports to affect your life and put into use in your real life is it's a phenomenal lesson that you get from playing.
It's just the same thing as when someone doesn't pass the ball. It's like they may be the star player, but if you don't pass the ball in certain situations, you may end up losing. It's like when you pass the ball, I'm not saying don't shoot and do everything, but learn and like work with me on that. Let's work together here and let's create this IQ. And I feel like that's what we're really missing, is the IQ, is like, what sports brings is, I don't know. That's my opinion. I get very
agree with you
about it.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. But Coach,
you've had, before we let you go, of course, you had a phenomenal resume, what you've been going through, different assistant coaching positions, being a head coach, going to the WNBA. Actually, I do want to hear, how do you feel about now Sabrina Ionesco now taking charge, taking over New York Liberty?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm a huge fan of hers. I love to watch her play. She's so good. And I think she's a great example of just toughness and hard work and passion for the game. Like you watch her play, she's not athletic. She's strong, but she's not a great athlete in terms of running and jumping. playing in the air. She's like a on the ground player. But boy, I mean, just she's one of those. Every game she played this year, if it was on TV, I watched it because it was like there's just certain players that have that I don't know what the word is, but just there's
it factor.
Yeah, there's something that just
IQ
draws you to watching it. No, she really knows how to play. She's great in pick and rolls. Like, she plays at a great pace. She never gets sped up. No, I can't wait to see her play with delivery. I mean, I think she's terrific. I mean, she's the next, obviously, star in women's basketball, to say the least. And, you know, again, she seems, everything I've read in interviews and the whole, you know, her whole relationship with Kobe, she just seems like a terrific person that, you know, I would think the league is really pleased that, one, that she's in, obviously, the major media market in New York. But I mean, she's the next star. You know, I'd be shocked if she's not a, you know, a star and plays on, you know, 3 or 4 Olympic teams, and, you know, it becomes the best player in the league.
For sure. Because I asked that, like, because I really believe that she could really flip that league around. You know, having a mentor like Kobe, you know, teaching you the ins and outs of the game, the fadeaway, you know, and watching, you know, rest in peace, and her daughter, and his daughter, Gigi Bryant, I felt like these were phenomenal female athletes that could really change the sport and bring, you know, a lot more popularity with it.
Yep.
And for her to take over New York Liberty, which, you know, we haven't really heard too much about them on news and stuff.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal, her impact.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk about, like, in your career, you know, what was the experience like going to the national championship? That atmosphere.
Yeah. Nah, it was amazing. I mean, it was kind of a 3-week whirlwind for us. You know, we started the tournament the first weekend. We were in Tucson, Arizona. You know, we won 2 games there. Then we went the next round. We went to Denver. So we were in Denver for 2 games. We won those 2. And then we were on spring break at Seton Hall at that time. And we made the decision, instead of going from Denver all the way back to New Jersey and then have to go back to Seattle, we stayed on the West Coast. So we went to LA for a couple days just to kind of unwind before we headed up to Seattle. But I actually myself, I did all of our scouting. So I actually flew back from Denver to New Jersey because the East Regional final that year was at the Meadowlands. It was Duke Georgetown. So I flew back late Saturday night to go to the game Sunday in New Jersey, and basically, you know, went home and kind of repacked, and I was on a flight Monday morning out to Los Angeles. But even I was in New Jersey for probably 20 hours, and we had been on the road again for 2 weeks. This was before there was internet. So, like, we knew what was going on back in Jersey, but we really didn't have a firsthand look. And I remember as it was yesterday, walking in to the Meadowlands to where we played our home games to scout the game, and like an onslaught of people coming over, you know, who were all Seton Hall fans that had tickets to the game, or media people. And just, you know, we were a small little school in New Jersey that kind of took over the college basketball world for a 3-week, you know, you guys know March Madness. And we were, you know, we kind of were the, you know, almost like the Gonzaga or the Butler, you know, the small little school that people knew were good, but they didn't know how good. And now all of a sudden we're there. And I mean, at the time I was, 27, 28 years old, you know, young guy. It was probably, you know, my 3rd or 4th year at Seton Hall, and, you know, sitting on the bench at the national championship, and, you know, kind of, you know, I had gone to Final Fours before, you know, as a coach, not obviously with a team, but, you know, just having an appreciation. You know, you look around, you see all these older coaches that have coached their whole life and never even had close to this opportunity. And I'm sitting here like, man, I'm 27, 28 years old, and I'm sitting on the bench for the national championship. So, it's still, I still, and again, it was close to 30 years ago, whatever it was. I still meet people, you know, that come up to me and want to talk about it and recognize who I am, and will tell me a story. Oh, we were here, we were there, we were at the game, whatever. So it was really cool. I mean, it was just a great, a great experience. I mean, most coaches obviously don't come anywhere close to having their teams go to a national championship. So, I mean, it's obviously a lifetime memory that, never gets old talking about it. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy story. And just a crazy timeline. You're crazy, going from these different places, organizations, and now you come to FDU. What was that transition like? And now for the past, I believe, 7 or 8 years.
7.
How has that been?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. I was at St. Peter's for 3 years, and it was just, I kind of just wanted to change. I've obviously known of FDU. I mean, we used to play them back in the day when I was Seton Hall. Every year we'd play FDU. And, I've been in the gym a lot, different recruiting events, but I didn't know a lot about the campus. And, when Greg got the job, and he and I have known each other our whole coaching careers, and we worked together. My last year at Seton Hall, a new coach came in, and Greg had been on that guy's staff, so they kept me on staff. So we had worked together for 1 year. We talked, I met with him, and yeah, it was time for a change for me. And, it's been fun. This was the first time I kind of have been in this environment in terms of totally helping to rebuild the program.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to this, I've been pretty fortunate of just going into situations that were pretty good teams. I mean, as a head coach, I kind of had to rebuild the program I inherited when I was at Kane, but as an assistant, I had never been involved with that. So that I kind of viewed as a challenge, and I thought it would be just a kind of a fun, at the stage of my career where I was at, of just helping to kind of put an imprint of how you want to run a program. Because we inherited a program that needed fixing on the court, off the court.
Basically built it from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say scratch, but because again, I think, you look at the history of FDU, the basketball program has been successful. So it's not like we had never been good before.
Uh-huh.
We just needed to kind of overhaul the current environment. And again, it's been fun. I mean, we've been really fortunate with just, we got good guys. They're guys. Coaching's tough. It's a tough profession. It's a tough business. If you don't have good guys in your program, it's really tough. Mm-hmm. So, that's been the enjoyable part. Like, we got guys that, you look forward to getting with them and being in the gym and working with them, coaching them and meeting with them, watching video, whatever the case may be. They're good guys to be around. And that, that makes it enjoyable, and makes the work you put in worthwhile, because that they're getting better and they're taking positives from it, and they're coachable, and they want you to coach them. So it's been fun.
Amazing. Yeah. And like you said, it's the toughest job, seeing how the other assistant coaches, of course, Coach Hamburger, like, go through with that whole process. Obviously you guys get yelled a lot. I know that. I've witnessed it. But seeing success in the program, seeing like what you practice in the gym, and you emulate, and then you see it happen in the game. Like, for instance, the game with LIU, there was a certain play, I think either Elijah or KB, that did an up and under move that you always practice. I was with you in the gym, and I was just like, damn, they did exactly what Coach Bruce did. And I went up to you. I did that thing that Drake did with Nick Nurse. I gave you the shoulder rub. I was just like, you earned it, man. Like, this is all that hard work in the gym. It just
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Like, I mean, you're right. You spend all the time when no one's seeing it and no one's there, and you're in the gym by yourself with a kid, or you're working on a segment in practice, or you're in the office watching video, or you're setting.
A lot of time goes into it, Coach.
Yeah, and then once the success comes in a game, and again, at the end of the day, I'm not foolish. The kid's the one doing the work. I'm just kind of, as a coach, pushing them in the right direction and motivating, encouraging, supporting, being there for them. But yeah, I mean, that's a cool thing when it clicks and it works in a game, and you're like, man, yeah, all that time spent with no one there, that's kind of that's what motivates you as a coach, I think, and that, and seeing guys when they're done playing come back and they're successful in their lives and doing well, and knowing that you had some input into that, some part of their success, and you hopefully taught them good lessons. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I really like to think that's why we all coach. I mean, and then you get into coaching and different reasons continue being a coach. But I think at the core of it, that's what it's all about. Like just seeing a guy improve and progress and mature, and knowing that you had some input into that and some measure of helping them get to that spot. It's a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah, I had to mention it. It was just like, it was just such a funny thought. I was thinking about it. I'm just like, man, Coach Bruce goes through a lot. Like, he gets yelled at. So I was like, man, I had to do that thing with Drake. Like,
that's funny. Luckily, I don't get yelled at as much. Pete's the whipping boy. I don't get yelled at too much. It's occasional, but again, it's like the players. You gotta kind of filter out what's being said, and knowing that a lot of it's just said in frustration and anger. So I know when I was a head coach, I had my moments doing the same thing. You just kind of lose your mind for 30 seconds. And at the end of the day, it's like, hey, it's part of the process.
It's part of the process.
And definitely, I really do appreciate how, like, again, like you were talking about, like the coaches being able to connect with the players,
the biggest thing.
It was such a tough loss, that game, coming back from over 20 points, I think, like 21 and 22 points. And we were able to rally. We lost by 1. And, going to the locker room, it was quiet, but I still had a sense of hope, because the way that team was able to unite at the end, hence our hashtag United, like we were able to unite, and it just brings so much positivity into up and coming season. And, it gives credit to the players and, of course, the coaches, especially.
I just think it's true what he just said about the coaching part, because especially with new coaches coming in, if you can't learn what group is already there, it's very hard for there not to be like a cleaning house thing and let me start over. Because if the coach doesn't believe in you or like gives you some type of confidence or some type of love, it's not working out. It's just not going to work out. It's just not going to go well. And I think that's just, I don't know, you just cleared that point for me too. It's just, that's exactly the point right there, being a coach. Successful coach.
A successful coach like yourself. There's a lot of players for a reason that admire you. Elijah was talking to us before the podcast. He was a heavily looked at coach. Like, we want to play for him because, he emulates these certain aspects a player wants as a coach. Yep. So, again, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show, hearing your stories, learning about
Thank you.
And
my pleasure. My pleasure. I enjoyed it, and you guys are doing a great job. I've enjoyed watching some of the other guests you had, and keep it going.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Final Two podcast. Appreciate you guys watching. Peace.